My initial reaction to this game was when I was riding in a car back from the Penn State-Michigan game, which I attended in person. So I'm looking at the scoreboard because I can't necessarily live stream. The service is spotty. Phone is really low on battery, so all I can afford to do is look at the scoreboard updates. And I later watched the highlights and all, but looking at the scoreboard initially on my phone, I see 7-7 Ohio State Purdue, and I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be a shootout. There's going to be, frustration and anger from both sides of this. Ohio State will probably win, but their fan base will be, just stomping all over the defense once again. And despite some, I would still say, a poor performance by Ohio State's pass defense, let me just say this. I turn on my phone a few minutes later. It's 35-7. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? What's going on? And I later learned Purdue fumbled the ball twice. They punted once or twice. And you just can't do that stuff against Ohio State because the defense will, again, get 1, 2, 3 stops, and Ohio State's offense will turn that into 1, 2, 3 possession leads. And as a Michigan fan, that's my ultimate dream. Unfortunately, Jimmy doesn't look at it that way. So, life stinks if you're a Michigan fan who wants a spread offense. But that's a topic for a later day. This game was a bludgeoning, an absolute bludgeoning. This was the revenge tour, Ohio State edition, is exactly what this was. Purdue in 2018, wins by several scores. The score off the top of my head that I think was that game was, maybe 52-24, 52-28. Ohio State wins this, just casually. No big deal, no biggie. 59-31. Wow. Oh, wow. And keep in mind, it's not like Ohio State picked off Aidan O'Connell for 6. Aidan O'Connell threw for nearly 400 yards and threw for 4 touchdowns. Played a really good game. It's just the rest of his team, not so much outside of David Bell and the wide receiver group. And this win is impressive. You may be thinking, but Purdue was overranked from the beginning and, it was kind of a bunch of scrubs. And I don't necessarily think that's true if you think that. Now, if you don't, then you will agree with me and many others that this is like an eye-popping win, especially with Ohio State's previous result against Nebraska, the week before that, Penn State, where Ohio State played 2 teams with more of a pulse than Indiana, Maryland, and Rutgers, and honestly looked like Michigan in scarlet and gray, sputtering in the red zone. Their defense kind of saved them in both of their games where their offense produced enough points but kind of sputtered along. This looked like the Ohio State we're used to seeing under Ryan Day. Maybe there isn't a whole lot of defense, but the offense just strikes. Can't do anything about it. Stroud threw for 361 yards, 5 touchdowns. Ohio State rushed for 263 yards and 3 touchdowns and averaged 8.5 yards per carry, which again should show you the state of the O-line and the speed of the running backs and wide receivers and anyone who runs the football. It's all about speed, proper blocking, proper execution. This is the Ohio State way. And speaking of the Ohio State way, let's get into my takeaways. My takeaways. There's always positives and negatives. There are more positives than negatives. I know there's only 2 of each listed, but the concerns or negatives aren't that big of a deal, at least when it comes to a Big Ten perspective. But we'll start with the good news first. The good news: your offense unleashed itself onto the world, and it couldn't be stopped. Again, Stroud completed 31 passes out of his 38 attempts for 361 yards, 9.5 yards per pass, 5 touchdowns, no picks, no forced fumble, not even a sack on his head, in a 97.1 QB rating. Stroud played well. The O-line played well. Garrett Wilson, aside from having 126 yards and 3 touchdowns, had a 51-yard touchdown run that was amazing to watch. TreVeyon Henderson had 98 rushing yards, 7.5 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns. Mayan Williams actually led Ohio State in rushing yards with 117, 8.4 yards per carry. No touchdowns, but a long rush of 22. Henderson, of course, had that 57-yard touchdown. He might be the best running back in the nation when it comes to getting an open space, to be real with you. Jaxon Smith-Njigba now leads Ohio State in receiving yards. He had 139 yesterday, or at the time of this recording at least, it's Sunday night. 139 receiving yards, 1 touchdown. Wilson again, 126 yards, 3 touchdowns, and Olave with 85 yards, 1 touchdown. This offense can't be stopped. Like a total, no joke, a grand total of 624 offensive yards. That's amazing. This is the modern offense. This is what teams should strive to have, is that offense. And I know not everyone can have it. Not everyone has the talent, like Wisconsin and Iowa, Minnesota. The only team in the West that I could argue could run it is probably Nebraska, maybe Wisconsin if they get some better recruiting. Not a lot of schools in the West can run it. I mean, Rutgers and Indiana would struggle as well with their recent recruiting. But Penn State, Michigan, I mean, heck, Michigan State is basically Ohio State, but worse overall, which, to give you a little hint of my preview, is why I think Ohio State is going to pretty soundly beat the Spartans, because when you face something that is a carbon copy of you, but inferior, it tends to not necessarily go well. I mean, you see this in superhero movies. You even sometimes see this in real life when, like, father v son, when the son's really young. He has similar attributes, but for now, until he fully develops, he's a smaller kid. Stroud also, just to briefly touch back on him, he looked like an elite QB. And keep in mind, it was not against a scrub defense. Purdue has a sneaky good defense, and let me tell you something. Sneaky good defenses typically don't allow 59 points per game. They don't. And Stroud, with his accuracy and good decision-making, looked much better than he did against Nebraska. He, again, 5 touchdowns through the air, no picks, no fumbles, not even a sack. Good for him. And now he, according to several betting odds websites, is the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. And why shouldn't he be? He has an 89.4 QB rating, which is first in the nation. He has 30 touchdowns, 5 picks, which is a 6-to-1 touchdown interception ratio, 11th in passing yards. He has a 179.4 passer rating, which isn't necessarily high, but this is the first time, Mac Jones set a passer rating record. Joe Burrow did. I think Kyler Murray did. Baker Mayfield. We've had years in a row where the passer ratings keep getting better slowly. This year, I don't think there's a guy who is at 200 or above. Tell me if I'm wrong down below, because I'm not going to go through And, look at that. But still, he's, first in QB rating. QB rating, I think, is what the NFL uses anyway. And passer rating, not everyone uses that. It's a good indication, but still a 179.4 passer rating with a 204 passer rating against Purdue. That's Heisman stuff. That right there, that's Heisman stuff. So offense looked great, and the real concerns are with the defense, which I think all of us would expect. Now, I'm not going to rip the pass defense too much. And I say that because we have known from the beginning when the offensive issues were prevalent against Oregon, when Tanner Morgan made some throws, and we later learned, he's not a good QB, but he made some throws against Ohio State anyway. And even from what the coaching staff has told us, we knew that Ohio State would have some secondary issues. We knew that. They even told us that. But still, allowing nearly 400 yards from a QB, I don't care what his name is, it doesn't always happen, not even if you face an elite QB. Like, this isn't Alabama v. LSU, but in the Big Ten setting where maybe Michigan has a modern offense and Ohio State's just Ohio State. That's not what this is. This is Purdue against Ohio State. Purdue is not LSU. Purdue does not have Joe Burrow at quarterback or Tua Tagovailoa healthy at quarterback. They have Aidan O'Connell. And Aidan O'Connell is good, but he has his moments where he turns over the ball a ton or he doesn't make good decisions. And Ohio State, just couldn't force him to make the bad decisions and got his better self, I guess is what you could say, but still allowing 400 passing yards is not a good sign. And listen, you don't have to worry about that if you just want to win the Big Ten, because Michigan probably won't pass for 400 yards. State could totally pass for 400 yards. They'll allow you to pass for 700. So, case in point, Wisconsin, they won't pass for 400 at all. They'll pass for 100. They'll make your pass defense look good and proceed to probably rush for 200, maybe 300, but Ohio State's D-line is much better than their back seven. We knew this. Entering the year, this was kind of expected. And the D-line, honestly, has shown the most strides of improvement. D-line and play calling. And those two right there have masked some of the secondary's weaknesses for sure. And having Denzel Burke at corner is amazing as well. Absolute lockdown corner. Might be the most lockdown corner in the nation. And he's a true freshman, so you're going to have him for a little longer. The other concern is the defensive line did not record a single sack or QB hurry, which is what that's what the last thing means. A QB-HUR is an abbreviation for a QB hurry. Ohio State had none of those. They had no sacks, no QB hurries. They had 5 tackles for loss. 5 of them. Which, listen, it's not the end of the world. You didn't lose. If you lost and that happened, this would be a completely different conversation if you lost and had no sacks. Because then I would be telling you, hey, my Michigan Wolverines have a better O-line than Purdue. This could mean X. That's not the point. The point is, like with the secondary, listen, it was one bad game, but you can't not get pressure on Michigan and Michigan State. Because case in point, Michigan State, they've had teams pressure them all year, and they still, find ways to get explosive plays. Imagine if you somehow fail to pressure them, the amount of explosive plays that will result. Michigan has a good O-line, but What happened when they faced a bad pass defense and a D-line that could not pressure their O-line? They passed for 400 yards. So Ohio State, you Buckeyes, you're now facing the two toughest teams in the East in a row, Michigan State and Michigan. And both, when not under pressure, whether it's because Michigan has a good supporting cast or because State has explosive players, you don't pressure them. They will eat your secondary away. And if Walker finds a hole, boom, to the end zone. And Haskins is not as explosive nearly as Henderson or Walker. But boy, that O-line combined with him churning his legs, maybe he finds just a weak point. He can push the O-line past the line of scrimmage. So you see my point. Ohio State's D-line is the anchor to their defense. I think they lead the nation in sacks. They need to learn from this game, find out what happened, and I get that Aidan O'Connell and Purdue, they can pass well. They can get off quickly. They don't need all the time in the world to throw and make plays. We saw this against Michigan State. O'Connell would get pressured pretty quickly. There was already a plan in place. But nonetheless, if Michigan State got 2 sacks, if Wisconsin bullied their way into the backfield, I'm pretty confident Ohio State can as well. So against Michigan State and against Michigan, you just got to get pressure. You got to get pressure in those games. Not saying that you won't win those games if something goes wrong. It's just, it helps. It helps when you can get pressure against better teams because that often forces their quarterback to make some mistakes, to throw that one game-changing interception. We know this. And that right there is all I have to say for this video. This video is shorter than a lot of reaction videos, but I don't really have much to say because I watched the highlight package. I watched parts of the game that I could. I viewed the scoreboard, the analysis, everything, but this is just a blowout. And there's not a lot to say about a blowout where the only negativity are things that we already discussed. I guess one thing you could add to the negativity, and it's about the passing defense, is how Purdue honestly looked like at moments that they were completely manipulating Ohio State's pass coverage. But again, it's Aidan O'Connell, it's Jeff Brom. They've done this before. They've done it several times this year. It's kind of like, what's new? Ohio State's still in the driver's seat for the Big Ten. I think after this game, this indicates that they will certainly win the Big Ten. I mean, looking at this game compared to the Nebraska game is night and day. Nebraska, your defense got pressure. They stepped up, made some plays even in the pass defense department, but the offense was sputtering. Here it's the exact opposite. So I don't know. I think that Ohio State wins the Big Ten. I think that they win out. I think that if Michigan had a more modern offense, in a certain sense, that Michigan would have a very good chance here against this Ohio State team. But this is, again, as a Michigan fan, where I criticize my own coach because he has a moment here, and I don't think he will take opportunity of that moment. And Michigan State, they're a good team. I'm going to preview them, later this week. And they are, you can tell Mel Tucker's a good coach because outside of the O-line, they look like this Ohio State team. I mean, obviously with less talent, they're younger, worse execution, but it's a year 2. I think Ohio State wins out at the moment and wins the Big Ten and gets to the playoff. And I think this game completely proves that fact. Thank you all for watching. If you like this video, remember to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and comment your thoughts down below. I'm a Michigan fan, yes, but I love talking Buckeye content and Big Ten content in general. It fascinates me. I love rivals, and even though I do, as all Michigan fans do, dislike Michigan State and Ohio State, I do try indeed to not be biased. Help me reach 2,000 subs. A giveaway is coming soon. It is in the works. I'm trying to figure some stuff out and continue to get a schedule and get more organized with this. But I am going to reward all of you for supporting this awesome channel sooner rather than later. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you around.